We have talked about creating error objects, and we have mentioned the throw keyword. Let's spend a bit more time on throwing errors. Now, first, the keyword throw doesn't need an error object. It can throw any value. The act of throwing will stop code execution. For example, if I were to open up the browser here, I can throw a number. I can throw a string. It really doesn't matter what the value is. Whenever you use the keyword throw, it causes this to happen in a browser. It will stop code execution. Now, of course, it makes more sense to throw an error. And so we usually use one of the error constructors to throw that error. And generally, we use the default error constructor. But when would you throw that error? Now, probably the most obvious situation for throwing an error is to provide information about why a function failed. Let's look at an example. Here I have a function, format scores. It takes in an array, and then it sorts that array using this function that is passed in to sort it. So it's sorting numbers. That's what it's doing. It's going to sort lowest to highest. Then it joins that array into a string and returns it. So it's something very simple. But if we were to call this function without an array, it would return an error. Right here, we have called it with an array, and we receive this as the result. Now, if we were to do the same thing, and then this time we pass in a string, well, we're going to get an error here. Let's see what that error is. So if I save that, uncaught type error, scores.sort is not a function. Now, this is a situation where this function would automatically throw an error. We can see it right here. However, as you've certainly become familiar with, the error messages can sometimes be obtuse. They're not always obvious what it's talking about. This isn't too bad, but it could be better, right? And this is a chance to provide an error for a function that might be used in multiple places that has more meaning and allows the developer a better chance at finding the problem. So if we look at this scenario, say this is a function I've created that is a part of a larger application or part of a library that I built or something like that. Well, we would want to throw an error so at the higher level, at the application level, somebody can catch that error. And the error will provide more information. It won't be so cryptic. And so that's what we're going to do here. So let me go ahead and make a change to this to throw our error. So first we will check to see if the value that is passed in is an array or not. So we're going to use array.isArray to do that. And then we're negating that. And so if it's not an array, this is where we would throw an error. And we're going to pass in some information that we think will communicate better. So first off, I'm going to pass in the name of the function. I'm going to provide that information so whoever receives this error can know what function to look at. And then I'm going to pass in the specifics of why this error occurs. Because I did this statement here, I know exactly the reason the error occurred. It's because an array was not passed in. So I can say this function requires an array as an argument. Something like that. So that will throw an error for this statement down here. So now if we save that, here's our uncaught error. Gives us a little more information. Tells us the function, tells us exactly what happened. So that would be a reason to throw an error. And any function that is at a lower level that is to be part of a larger project or part of a library, you may want to look at the function and consider how it could fail, and then provide a more intuitive error for those situations. Then in the larger application, wherever this function is being used, the developer can use try-catch statements to capture the error and to handle it properly, to do something else. So the purpose of throwing the error is to provide more information. Then the catching of the error is to prevent the default behavior, which would cause the code execution to end, and to handle that error in a better way, or in a way which the developer would like to handle it. This is the thought process for implementing error handling strategies in your application. Let's talk about that more in the next video.